This video is about solving the mystery of life, or more precisely, understanding what life actually is. We'll explore the solution described by the Danish author Martinus. So, most of us accept that life's biggest questions, why we suffer, what our purpose is, whether existence has real meaning, will always remain mysterious or a matter of faith. But Martinus provides a plausible explanation of what life is. His view is spiritual, meaning that there is an intention behind everything we experience, whether we understand this or not. And furthermore, this intention is to do us good, even when our experiences are unpleasant. Our experience of life is based on contrast, so the unpleasant is a benefit to us, although it is unpleasant. So thereby, Martinus claims that the deepest meaning of life is that everything is very good. That might sound a little bit strange because sometimes life doesn't seem that good, but that's the claim of him. So that might be a lot to take in. So subscribe to the channel for more on how this can be. So my name is Lasse. I've been studying Martinus' work since I was a teenager, and now I teach at the Martinus Institute. I also happen to have a PhD, so I approach this with both spiritual curiosity, you can say, and scientific skepticism. What draws me to Martinus is his transparency. Everything is freely available, and he actually encourages us to test his ideas against our own experience. We should not just have blind faith in him. He calls it spiritual science, something we can investigate for ourselves. We can go through his arguments and we can think about them and we can relate them to what we have experienced. Obviously, if there are things he write about where we have no experience at all, it just might sound like a fantasy for us. But if you have a certain amount of experience in the areas that he's writing about, it starts to make sense. Anyway, let's get into the video part of this. So what is in this video? Well, first, I will just briefly state what a mystery is in the first place, what a solution to the mystery of life could be, just in general terms. There are some known views on a solution, on the solution of life. I'll go into them. Then we'll go into the meat of this video, what the basic idea is, and that is essentially about what the analysis of a living being is. Essentially, what it takes to have a living being. And then we'll expand on that idea. And in the first place, we start with ourselves. What are we as a living being? And then Martinus states that everything that exists is a living being that we know of God as God, and that we are part of that. So that's his worldview, so to speak. Obviously, there's a lot of details in that, and we cannot go into all of them in this video. I already made some videos, and there will come more on this in the future. But for now, we just want to have the bigger solution here in something I can present in one video, basically, that is not too long. Anyway, so everything is a living being. Martinus states that this living being wants to do what's good. So he states that everything is very good, and that is essentially the solution here. And you can say the interesting part is not so much that everything is very good, which might be surprising in itself, but also that there are some arguments for that. And we will get into that a little bit in this video, but even more in future videos. And obviously, Martinus writes a lot about it. He writes 10,000 pages. I have some of the books here. So there's a lot of explanation, arguments, and things you can work on to understand why he claims this. Anyway, to understand that everything is very good because we do experience these unpleasant things, also that everything is fair, then we have to go in a little bit into talking about karma. And then we have contrast, which is a very basic thing in the worldview of Martinus presents, that we need contrast in order to experience things. And you also have what he calls the spiral circle, and I will talk a little bit about that. Finally, if you find this video interesting, valuable in any way, want to follow upcoming videos, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I will provide more videos on this topic. I plan to do a series about the arguments that Martinus provides for this view on the world, basically. He has 12 facts, and I will present all of them in probably 12 different videos. That will also be an introduction to Martinus' worldview. So subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. That actually sometimes makes it pop up a little bit more. And follow me on social media and so forth. Thank you, and let's get into it. Alrighty, so let's get into it. Basically, I just want to talk a little bit about what a mystery is. And essentially, a mystery is something that we don't know. So the mystery of life is the mystery of life because we don't know the real solution to the mystery of life. There's a long conversation about whether we can know that or not. This is where my scientific background comes in a little bit because it's not that easy to establish real knowledge, at least from the background I have in sociology and humanities. That's more like a social construction. But Martinus, he is pretty straightforward on that and says there's absolute knowledge. We can actually know things not just in a relative way that is created by ourselves or the how we measure things and all this, but there's actual absolute knowledge. I've made a couple of videos about that, so check that out. But for now, we just want to say that a mystery is something where we don't know what really is going on here. So the mystery of life is basically that we don't know fundamentally what life is all about. We can have a view on it, but Martinus would say in reality, we don't really know what is going on. Someone like us. And that's what he writes about. He explains why we don't know it. And obviously, his work is here to help us understand that. So it's written in a way that it's conveying his worldview not just as a new thing we have to believe in, like the religions, but he calls it a spiritual science because we can actually read his arguments, we can guess definition, and all those kind of things you need in a scientific approach to things. What he doesn't have is all. He hasn't done any real, you can say, experiments in a way, and we have to do them ourselves. Anyway, enough about that. So let's move to the next one. Yeah. So a mystery is something that we don't know. It's lack of knowledge, basically. Life is a mystery because we don't know what it is. What does a solution look like? Well, we already have many solutions of views on the mystery of life, actually. A solution can be more or less true to this absolute reality that's out there, according to Martinus. So we all have a view or a worldview, a solution to the mystery of life. And there are some bigger categories that can be religious views. I mean, we have the big religions. Again, that's sort of a solution to life, right? God has created us, if that's the belief. We live our life. Some people believe that you either go to heaven or hell or something, whatever people believe in. But that's a belief, right? That's a faith. There's not a lot of logic to it, I would say. Why is it there? Why were we born? Why did God create us? Why do some people go to heaven? Why do some people go to hell? What is the fairness and all that, so to speak? And so forth. Martinus argues that some of these views has some truth in them, for sure, but they're not really argued. So that's the thing. So that's one solution. It definitely has some aspects of the truth in them, but it's not the complete view on the world, so to speak. Then we have a materialistic view. Then there's no God in the world. Then the solution to the mystery of life is essentially that we are physical beings. Our consciousness is something that comes out of the physical brain we have. That's mostly the view, right? And that's what's there. And the world view and the view on life is essentially when our life starts when we're born, and when we die, it's over. That has a lot of consequences on how we perceive life, how we live a life, and how we live life basically comes down to what our moral or ethical uh, level, so to speak, is. But there's no higher purpose in any way. Anyway, that's some solutions. Martinus has a new spiritual view. In a way, it's not new. That's my words. Martinus talks about eternal truths. So it's something eternal is something that has always been there. It's not like the Christian way of seeing things that your life starts and then you have eternal life. Martinus would say that cannot be because if something has started at some point and you will go out in the future, it will have an age. And when Martinus talks about eternal, he says it's something that has never started and will never end. So it's a new spiritual view in the way that it's something that's new on earth here. It hasn't really been here before in the way Martinus describes it. And here is symbol number 32. That's the 12 basic answers or the solution to the mystery of life. I'm not going to go too much into what the symbol actually has in it. I plan to do a video on each of these 12 facts, or there's the star here with 12 facts in it, and I will do a video on each of them. And that's a basic argument for why he comes to the conclusion he does. Anyway, so what his view is consisting of is these eternal, usually he calls them principles. That is the fundamental part of life. They've always been there and they will always be there. So that's how it becomes an absolute truth. So let's get into what he's saying. I think that's the next one. This is here. So the most basic idea Martinus has is his analysis of the living being. I have taken this symbol, that's the symbol number 41, the star symbol. And what we need to go into here is that Martinus states that the analysis of the living being is 3 principles, what he called the triune principle. So we have the created part, that's the area around the triangle here. We all know that the created part is, or the principle of the created is all the stuff that we experience. That's all the things that are moving. That's what we can see because it changes. We need some change in order to experience something. We need movement. We need change. That's creation. And I assume we all agree that that is happening. We are seeing that. That's what we experience in life. Something is changing from dark to light, from pleasant to unpleasant. So it's not just the physical part here, it's also the mental part of the world. He also says, like the physical part needs black and white and everything that's in between, we also have some mental part of us, our spiritual side of us, where we also need these contrasts in order to experience them in the first place. So we need to be happy, we need to be sad, and so forth, right? We need something pleasant to experience the unpleasant, and vice versa. And that's also an argument actually for us being eternal living beings, because what experience would be first if you need the other one to, the first one to experience the other one. Anyway, so that's the principle of created. And then we have, and this is where Martinus is different, I would say, than everyone. You can see it's kind of the things in some philosophies here and there, but Martinus is very clear on stating that behind the creating is a creator, and this is the triangle in this symbol. And that creator, we know it from ourselves if we take the analysis of us, and that's what Martinus states, that we should start by looking at ourselves here. So that's the first step into the mystery of life. He states that we have an I. We have I can, like an I can do or we can do, right? So when I do something, when I create this video, I'm quite sure that you know that behind this video is a living being. That would be me, who has created this video. So I am doing something. So we have the video, that's the created, and then we have the I, which is behind it. So that's 2 of the principles. The third principle is that this I has the ability, or the faculty, to actually create. So that's the 3 principles, and we see them here on the symbol. We have the I, and this circular white thing is the ability to create, or the talents to create, and then we have the created. That is not so fundamentally different from everything else. But what Martinus states, and this is where it really gets, this is where it becomes something new, at least from my perspective, is basically he states that the I, things that directs the created is not the created itself. So if we take the materialistic point of view, they would say that our consciousness come out of the brain, basically. That's a product of the brain. And Martinus would say it's the other way around. We have something behind it that has created first our thoughts and then our physical body. And in that case, we have the I behind the created, and it's not the created itself. It's something else. It's actually something non-created. It's unmanifested. Doesn't mean it's not there. It's definitely there. We talk about it. We see the sign of it all the time. That is the created. So we have this I that has the ability to create, and the I is above or beyond or not the created itself. So we have something eternal, something absolute that can change the created, which is relative and changing all the time. So the most basic idea is that the living being consists of these three principles: the I, the ability to create, and the created. And that's an eternal analysis of the living being. That's how it has been all the time. So this is the most basic understanding of the solution to the mystery of life. And you can say maybe in itself it's not that crazy to say this. So let's take the next step and see what he has here. Okay, so we went through that the analysis of the living being is an I that create the created. And that's just us as individual living beings. So what Martinus states here is that the whole thing, I said, everything that exists, the universe, or however you want to describe it, is a living being as well. So everything we see in the stars, and if we go into the smaller parts, the atoms, molecules, and so forth, there is an overall I behind all of this. There's something that steers it, there's something that controls it, if you can say. There's an intention behind what is going on. It's quite easy for us to see, at least to some extent, within our own world where we are close. Again, here we can take the video example. You can see that I've been working on that. You have your own life, you have plans. Some of them works out quite well, some of them not so well, but there's intention behind it. And Martinus states everything that exists has this I, and we also know it from the religion as God, basically, right? So his view on this is that God, the definition of God, is essentially everything that exists. So everything that is created, all the abilities to create that exist, and this I behind the whole thing, together, that means it's God, basically. So we live in a bigger living being, you can say, which is this God that wants to do the best for us. And there are also some information Martinus provides on that what we see right now is that we are in a process of developing from what he called the animal kingdom into the real human kingdom. So we are in a development process, and what will happen eventually is that we'll have neighborly love as a fundamental understanding of things. So we'll be friendly and good to everyone else. And that's when we get that, we'll get some intuition. I will not go further into that in this video, but essentially that's how you see the whole world and the facts of the world. And Martinus states that this ability, this intuition, is actually God's primary consciousness, and we are in sort of the secondary part of it where things are not complete yet. But God has this consciousness that is actually steering and controlling the whole world. So everything is well planned, it's well thought out. There's a purpose that eventually will end up in something that is good. So you can say all the bad things that we're experiencing right now that feel unpleasant, we don't understand what is going on, we feel they are unfair, or some of us, get into some trouble, right? One way or the other. Martinus explains, well, there's a higher purpose for this. We're in the school of life, so to speak, and the way to let us understand what is right and wrong, is to put us in a place on earth where we can go out and do what we think is right. And we will do that. We will see the consequences. We will learn and we will improve. Martinus states there are some areas of life where we have to experience it in a practical way. We cannot read a book about it. That's not good enough. We need to have it as our own experience, have it as part of our own sort of being in a way. So that is what is happening right now on Earth, basically, that we are here to learn a lot about what life is and what it isn't. Martinus provides a guidance to actually read this, what is going on. That's one of his main purposes here, that he gives us a vocabulary so we can talk about it, gives a higher understanding of what is going on, something we cannot see ourselves. I mean, the analysis of the living being, I mean, we get the pieces right, but putting it together and understanding that the I is not really part of the created. Well, maybe some will have a hint about it, but fundamentally that's a different way of thinking about things. And then he also have a lot of other things that plays into this that we'll come back to in some of the videos. Anyway, so the whole thing is a living being, and it's a living being that wants to do us well. And there's a purpose of what is going on, and eventually it will be a benefit for us. It might not seem like that right now, but it will be a benefit for us down the road. So that is how Martinus can claim that everything is very good. He talks about having the pleasant good and the unpleasant good, where the pleasant good is obviously when we experience something that's pleasant to us, and the unpleasant good is something where we experience something that is unpleasant, but it's still a good thing for us. And how can that be? Because that might sound a little bit crazy, maybe, to state that the bad things that happens to us and the bad things we do to others can actually be a benefit. So let's get a little bit more into that. So the main assertion here is that everything is very good. And there are a few things we need to talk about in order to make that plausible or even a realistic experience. So the first thing I will go into in this video is the concept of karma. It's essentially this idea that you reap what you sow. So essentially, the idea is that everything that we experience is something that we have sent out at some point. And then you can say, okay, we can see, for instance, babies are born into families where you have everything you need, materialistically, intellectually, great parents, all these kind of things, good societies, so forth. And then you have others that live poor, or sick, have disabilities, maybe even die at a very young age, right? So how can that be something you have reaped in order to? How can you have solved that in order to reap it? How can that come from yourself? And this is where the concept of reincarnation comes in. Martinus states that we have obviously lived this life, but we have lived earlier lives as well. And in between lives, we have experienced and we have lived in a spiritual world. So we have lived before, and he also says that we will live in future physical lives until we become real human beings. But that's for another video. Right now, we just have to understand that we are living obviously this life, and some of the stuff that we experience in this life comes from our past in former lives and even further back than that. So essentially, everything that we send out is something that we'll experience at some point. Or said the other way around, which is more relevant, everything that we experience is something that we have sent out or we have put towards other living beings at some point in our previous or former life. And why is that interesting? Well, firstly, that is the highest form of fairness, according to Martinus. It's something where if everything that we experience is something that we have created or sent out ourselves, how can it be more fair than that? You don't experience something from someone else there might be someone else who actually brings it back to you. That happens in all our life. That's sort of the basic thing in life, that everything that experience comes from our surroundings. But these surroundings is essentially something that has gone in a circle that we have sent out, and it comes back to us. So that's one aspect of karma. We have reincarnation, comes back to us at some point. Right now, we cannot remember earlier lives. We can barely remember yesterday. So why should we be able to experience earlier lives? There are other aspects to that as well. But right now, we don't see where it's coming from, right? Maybe if we look for it, we can actually see, okay, I can remember I did this or that, and that's probably what is coming back here later on. Anyway, so I'll just say a few more words about how karma works. It might sound perhaps a little bit mechanical, that you send something out and you get it back. But there's actually some caveats to it. And one of them is that we only get the things back, especially when it comes to the unpleasant part of it, that we can learn from. So, for instance, if we take a more drastic one, you are a living being that can actually kill another living being, and let's say another person. You have done that, and take the karma idea here, you should get that back at some point, right? And the idea here is basically, as long as you need it to progress your development, you can get that experience. So let's see, you have killed someone, you get that experience back again. It could be in a war or whatever. Then you experience that. And then Martinus explains that that experience actually leaves a mark or a talent in a way. It is stored in this ability to create. It becomes part of our talents. So next time we get into a situation where we could kill the next person, maybe, then this experience comes with us, and we know it as where we, if we have experienced this kind of, we cannot do a certain thing because we know it will harm someone else. Pettiness in a way, in a good way, in a good sense. So you start to feel that I should not be doing this because it's actually hurtful to someone else. And when you start to have that experience that I cannot or should not do this, we call it ethics and moral, right? Then you do not need the experience to be killed yourself anymore. And obviously, this goes with a lot of other areas. We know, do I have to get angry at someone? Do I have to destroy or make people unhappy in a way? When I start to acknowledge the feeling in myself that when I do certain things, that will, and start to know what it does to other people, then I will eventually stop doing that myself. And when you start to stop doing that yourself, you don't need the karma anymore. So you won't get it back at that point. Maybe you will get it way later when you need it again, but for a long period of time, you won't get it. So that's why you can get into a situation where you might have killed a lot of people or a lot of living beings. Martinus also include animals in this. And if you're a meat eater, you probably a lot of living beings being killed on your related to you, right? And if the number of animals that gets killed is quite high, so if you needed to get killed all those times, that might not make sense from this learning perspective. But sometimes you acknowledge that you're actually hurting these animals quite hard, and if you stop that, you won't get the karma from that anymore. You don't really need it. So that's the point. So karma is not a mechanical thing in that sense. There are some, you only get it back when you need it. Anyway, that was a long talk about that. Back to the mystery of life. So one of the things that we need here is to understand that everything we get back is something we have sent out ourselves, and it's there because there are some high intention behind it, so we can learn from it. So that's karma. So the next thing I want to talk about is that we need contrast to live, to be alive, basically. Every experience that we have consists of a contrast. And Martinus explains that over time we need to experience both contrasts in life. So we need to experience what is pleasant and what is unpleasant. Martinus talks about what he calls the spiral circle. It's essentially 6 different stages in our life that keeps repeating itself. And he has some great symbols for that. I just took this, which is obviously not a Martinus symbol, yin and yang, because it kind of shows it as well. That we have a period of time where we experience the light, basically, and then we have a period of time where we experience darkness. And Martinus explains that we have this eternal life, and in order to keep an eternal life is not something that has started or will end. It goes on forever and ever and ever. So part of that is to renew our consciousness. Basically, we need in certain periods of time to experience, you can call it darkness or the unpleasant part of life, in order to keep on experiencing the pleasant part of life. And this might sound a little bit crazy in some ways, that we need to go back for a period of time to experience darkness or the unpleasant part, or have unpleasant experiences. But there's another principle that comes in here. It's called hunger and saturation. And what we have to understand is that, and we have to look at it in this eternal view, right? So things can just go on forever and ever and ever. So let's say we are in a situation where we have the abilities to experience the light. Neighborly love, everything is peaceful, everything is very good, we will say maybe. But think about, Martinus has this example, if you get your favorite food and that's all you get. In the beginning, you will be hungry for it, you will be happy for it, but at some point you will start to get saturated. At some point you will not want to have it anymore. And that's what he says happens with the pleasantness of being good to each other. At some point you just outlive that part. You have had enough of it. And now it's not like one life, it's a very long period of time. So essentially you have outlived all the hunger for this experience. And what happens is that essentially first you kind of go into yourself, you don't want to have part of it, and you start longing for this contrast, the unpleasant, which actually will look kind of pleasant because it's a different experience. You're just tired of the experience you already have, all these pleasant experiences, and you just want something else. It's spiritual experiences, and you want some more physical, materialistic experiences. So Martinus talks about that there is this eternal spiral going on. And the reason why I'm bringing this up in this video is that is the explanation for why we are in a situation where we are right now. Because our background is, according to Martinus, that we have lived through these higher spiritual worlds where you have all this peace and all that. You live, peaceful, and everything is understood. The mystery of life is understood, and all those kind of things. He says we can barely understand what is going on there. We got tired of it, so we were longing for a contrast, the physical world, basically, where we can do wrong and it can hurt us. So we started out as minerals, then we became plants, and then we become animals, and now we are what we are right now, somewhere in between animal and real human beings. So we are in a state where we really get to experience all the, you can say, all the mistakes that you can do. We are really learning about how to do things, all the wrong things, in order to get to know what is the right things. Enough about that. I made some videos about it. I'll link them in the description. But the main point here is, with this explanation, and there's obviously a lot of more details to it, we can actually start to understand that there is a reason behind the unpleasant experiences that we have in our life. If we cannot explain why we experience unpleasant things, we cannot explain why life is meaningful, why everything is very good. So that is why I just took it in briefly here. I will go much more into details in future video, and I already have a couple of them. I'll just say Martinus has an explanation of why we experience unpleasant things. And he also explains why these experiences is a good thing for us. they are unpleasant. So he talks about an unpleasant good that I have already mentioned. That was my overview of Martinus' solution to life. He has arguments, he has explanations, he says everything is very good. I will go through his 12 facts. That's the basic path to his solution to life in upcoming videos. So again, subscribe to the channel, like the video if you found it valuable in any way. And yeah, I'm just gonna say I will do a video with some more background to it, and then I will go into these 12 facts in upcoming videos as well. So that's where there will be a lot more details. That's the plan. And I hope you will join that. I'll also just say you might be wondering who Martinus is if you haven't heard about him before. I made an introduction video. I'll link to that one. Just briefly, Martinus was born in Denmark, lived his whole life here, had a big spiritual experience when he was 30 years old, and he that enabled his intuition, as he calls it, to have it permanently, and he could actually see these eternal principles. And his mission was basically to write it down in a way so modern intellectual people could actually understand it and check his views if we want to, basically. So I'm gonna take that approach in my videos as well, try to explain as good as I'm capable of what Martinus writes about the different facts. And obviously, hopefully, at the end of the 12 videos, we will get to this fact that I have already said here, that everything is very good. And if you approach life with that idea that everything is very good, it will actually, it can change you quite a lot, right? Because now, first of all, with the karma, you are the originator of what is coming towards you. So you don't have to be angry and all those kind of things. There's a lot of work to do with that. You don't have to be a martyr because it's coming from you and not the other ones who are the bad guys. They might have the role as a bad guy, but it's on your own devices, basically. And we'll see there's a reason for darkness and unpleasantness in the world as well. And Martinus is pretty optimistic about what is going on in a way. I mean, he has a lot of comments about what we're doing and that we could do it better, and that we are like not that great right now, but we'll get there eventually. So anyway, that is Martinus. He has there's a Martinus Institute in Copenhagen, and there's a course center called Martinus Center Clint in at Sjælland in Denmark as well that you can visit, and you can take a look at martinus.dk. You can find all his work there basically free. Not all of it is translated yet, but in English there's a good portion of it, so you should be fine with that. Let's see if there's anything. Yeah, who is Martinus? Yeah, so go to martinus.dk, check the links I have in the description, and I hope you will have found this video interesting and valuable in some way, and you will give it a like, maybe even a comment. It really helps the channel, actually. The algorithm, the YouTube algorithm. I really appreciate that part. I do as well. And you can see the link in the descriptions. So thanks for watching, and see you next time. Bye.